Welcome to Talking Halos. Derek Ciapola with Jared Timms and Nate Green for another exciting episode. Exciting. I think it is actually. I think we have a lot to talk about. How you doing, Jared?
I'm not doing too bad. Excited to talk about what we got going on here today. A lot of baseball news.
And Nate.
Yeah, a lot of fun things to talk about today. This be good.
A lot of fun things. So, in the news, first things first, catcher Matt Tice trade to the Cubs for cash considerations. Thoughts?
You need to go get catching depth. I mean, didn't we have a conversation last week about Chad Wallach? You got to go get like three more Chad Wallachs for AAA. You need to go get some decent depth there because right now your depth is Anthony Mulrine, Zach Humphreys, and Miles Emerson. I personally love those guys. I do. They're fantastic catchers. Unfortunately, they're just not major league caliber catchers. And I know you have two major league catchers right now, but you need some guys to play in AAA. And what if one of those guys gets hurt? So yeah, you need to go get a little bit. Yeah, you need to get more depth. Wait for the Rule 5 draft. See what happens then.
The minor league Rule 5, because if it's a major league Rule 5, they have to be in the big. So yeah,
it'll be minor league Rule 5. Yeah.
It's funny that it goes to the Cubs because I mentioned the Cubs as a potential for Thaish trade. Because they do need some. They're losing Yan Gomes and they've got a young kid back there with Amaya who's been pretty good for him. So interesting that everyone probably just was like, well, we'll give you nothing for him and whatever. They're gonna have to pay him like $2.5 million, which is fine for them. But yeah, Jared, it's November 20th. We still got 3-4 months before we need to sign catching depth. So they will sign catching depth, I would assume.
Sure, they'll get somebody being the key word. They need a hot body who can call a game.
Chad Wallach.
That didn't come across right. I mean, you know what I'm saying.
Chad Wallach.
He's alive.
He'll be fine.
He of course is alive. All right. So in the news, mentioned by John Heyman today, Willie Adames has been willing to move to third base, asking the possibility of the Angels are a possibility for him, even though they still have 2 more years for Anthony Rendon. Going to you first, Nate. What do you think?
It's a lot of money for Adames. He's going to cost it a lot of money. Is it a potential? Like, I think you have to look at everything and just see if something makes sense. Could he play shortstop and could they move Neto to second? Could he play third? Like, they do have a bunch of options with it. I don't think it's in the plans for this year. I think maybe next year something like this would make a little bit more sense just because it's a little bit easier to DFA Anthony Rendon with 1 year left on his contract rather than 2. So I would think that if you're going to look at replacing Rendon, it's going to be a young kid that is close to a big leaguer or has just been a big leaguer and, is kind of blocked and just needs a chance. So I don't think they go big with a third baseman right now, maybe in 2 years or maybe next year, but I think you have to go get a young kid. One of the guys I've mentioned, Curtis Mead, he's kind of blocked in Tampa Bay. That would be an interesting guy to just see like, hey, what does it cost? And then give him like push Anthony Rendon. If he's better than Rendon, great, let him start. If he's not, Rendon can play and Mead could be like the backup role. But you need somebody who can play third base because we all know Anthony Rendon over under on games played is probably 60, and I bet you most Angel fans would take the under on that.
Sure.
I'd say 60 games is generous. I'd push that more to the 50 game mark. But jokes aside, yeah, I the Angels tend to do weird things that you don't expect. This would be one of those weird things that you don't expect, and it's very, very Artie Moreno-like as well to go get a big name hitter. With that being said, am I opposed to Willie Adames? I'm not. I do like Willie Adames. Worth the second round pick for sure. Worth the money that he's going to get for sure. I'm not against it. I'm going to say that. Like we talked about it last podcast. You got to find needle movers. Willie Adames is someone who's going to move a needle for you. He's going to be a bat and he's going to be a good bat in the lineup. Plays good defense. Like he's what you look for. And he's a building block. Like at the end of the day, You're going to get him for 5, 6, 7 years, whatever you give him, and he's probably going to be pretty decent during. Okay, I'm going to jinx it because most guys that come to Anaheim aren't very good for some strange reason. Like I don't know if they're jinxed or whatnot, but hypothetically, Willie Adames should be pretty good for 4, 5, 6 years and probably worth the money that you pay him. So the biggest thing is Anthony Rendon. Like, what are you going to do with Anthony Rendon? Like, you you're already allocating $35 million there at third base. Are you willing to allocate any more money? Are you going to cut ties with him? Are you going to try to trade him? I don't know what. Like, I'm kind of at a loss, and it's also not like he's been bad. He just hasn't been on the field. Like, plain and simple as that. Like when he's on the field, he helps you. He helps the team. But he just can't stay healthy. And it's not like we're talking about an Albert Pujols at the end of his career or Josh Hamilton or anybody like that in the past. Just this signing just hasn't worked out, unfortunately. Like it's just one of those things. Like if he was healthy, even dating back, like you look at his first season, 2020, he was a good player, and then he got hurt and kept getting hurt. And it sucks to see, because he was on a Hall of Fame track, but yeah, I just don't know what to do with Anthony Rendon. I really don't. Like, cut ties and just eat that money. Can you figure out a way to, I don't know. I just don't know. You mentioned Nolan Arenado too. There's a possibility, I guess. Arenado's owed a lot of money. Maybe you can swap Arenado for Rendon. I don't think the Cardinals do that, but it's worth a conversation, I guess. I don't know. You got to figure something out though, because Anthony Rendon, the contract is the big thing. I'm not worried about Anthony Rendon, the human being. I'm not worried about Anthony Rendon, the baseball player. I'm just worried about Anthony Rendon and the contract and the money and all that. So,
one, the money on Rendon's already spent. It's already there. It's already baked into the cake. So
correct, but you're still spending it. Like Artie's not gonna be like, oh well, we're gonna zero that out. Artie's gonna be like, well, we're spending $35 million on Rendon, and we can't spend $35 million.
Okay, but listen, Adames is a shortstop. Correct. Now, okay, so maybe he even plays shortstop for the first month or two of the season, and by then, Rendon's probably hurt anyways. So, worst comes to worst, you have moving around a little bit. You have Rendon DHing. There's lots of solutions there. I'm for it.
Yeah. Oh, me too.
I'm for it because they need someone who can move a little, and he's 29. If he's 31 years old, I had enough of that. He's still under 30 when they sign him. That's I'm a little more willing to consider it. The exact opposite reason why I'm totally against Arenado. Arenado's, you've seen his production drop drastically in the last 2 years. I'm out on Arenado. They've done this enough where they pay big money late in careers, and the guy comes there already giving his best. There's a good chance you can get the best out of Adames. You can get equal production in the next for at least 2 or 3 more years out of him. Whereas in Arenado, no.
For me with Arenado, you have to trade Rendon somehow. You got to get that money off the contract because you're not, or off the books, because you're not taking on Arenado's money as well, who's owed, he's got 3 more years. Yeah, he's owed 21.
Well, why would the Cardinals take on that money?
The one good thing for the Cardinals with this contract, like if the Angels were to move Rendon to St. Louis with, 2 prospects or something, whatever it would be, because obviously it wouldn't be straight up. The contract would come off the books in 2 years instead of 3 years, because Arenado has 3 years left on his deal. Rendon has 2. So that would be the one thing. But the other obstacle in that is Anthony Rendon's got no trade clause. So does he want to go to St. Louis?
Well, so does Arenado. Both sides have to.
Yes. But I think Arenado's in a little bit different spot where like he would be going home. He would be getting like the Cardinals have kind of already said like, hey, we want to trade you. So like kind of give us a list of teams that you would be okay with being traded to. So like he's kind of in the driver's seat, where Anthony Rendon, it was like, hey, we're not openly trying to trade you. Obviously they probably are, but like nobody's really going to call about him. It's more of like, hey, this is the only team that's willing to take you. Are you going to go there? No. Okay. Well, then it kind of screws the whole deal. Like exactly. You really need Anthony Rendon to sign off on it first. If you sign Adames, could Anthony Rendon play first against a tough lefty? Could he like be a guy? And it sucks paying a guy however much, like 30 $8 million that Anthony Rendon's getting paid, but like, can he be a guy that plays third base here, plays first base there, and DHs every now and then? Like, probably not, but like, that would be the only solution to a Willie Adames signing would be like, Rendon, can you play first base? Maybe can you fill in at second base because that's what he came up playing. Um, I don't know. That would be the only solution to this mess of a contract.
I mean, forgive me a choice between the two. I'm Adames all the way, even though Arenado's had a much better career. I've seen enough in the last 2 years to know that he's heading down that downward spiral. All right, so other things going on. We have an open field of pitchers out there. Max Fried, Blake Snell, Shane Bieber, Walker Buehler. And here's the question for you guys. Well, before you ask that question, for our audio listeners, here's a word from our sponsor. All right, guys. So here's the question of the day. If you're the Angels right now and you're trying to find somebody to anchor the starting pitching staff, who would you rather sign? Here's some choices for you. Max Fried, estimated 6 years, $160 million. Blake Snell, 5 years at $150 million. Shane Bieber, we've seen some conflicting estimates on this. We'll go 3 years, $45 million. Or Walker Buehler at 1 year, estimated $15 million. Gonna go to Nate first. Which one you picking?
Yeah, I'm a big Shane Bieber guy. I'd give him 5 years, honestly, over the 3 years. I would give him five and give him a little bit more money. Even if it's five for 100, like I'm okay with that. No draft pick attached to him. He has the ability to be an ace. I think him and Blake Snell are probably the two best actual pitchers of these four when they're healthy and when they're right. And we've seen Bieber win a Cy Young. We've seen Blake Snell win a Cy Young. They're both in similar spots. The one thing that really worries me about Snell is like he's so up and down. It's such a roller coaster ride. Like he'll be really good for 1 month and really bad. Like I think you've even mentioned this a lot, and everyone mentions this a lot. His starts are so slow. It takes him until May or June before he's actually like really good. And for the Angels, by that time it could be too little, too late because when you're starting at a deficit, when you're like, hey, we're hoping to win 75, 80 games, like you need to be really good early so you can add late. And if you're bad early and Snell pitches great late, then it doesn't really help us because we're still going to finish in that 82 win, 78, whatever. And it's really not going to be anything good for us. So Bieber for me is like the most likely to be an ace. And we've seen him be really good. He's coming from a really good pitching org. I don't know. I think there's a lot of good things to like about Bieber. And again, he doesn't have to give up. You don't have to give up a second round pick like you do with Fried.
All right. Jared.
Value wise, Bieber for sure. Most upside. Especially if you can get him for multiple years. Like if you can find a way to get him for 5 years at like a super discount, you're almost, a CJ Wilson type of deal. That's pretty cool. Like I'm game for that because that's the most upside there. It's the most value. Blake Snell, very good pitcher for sure. There are some worries there. He's a little bit older as well. No pick attached, which is nice. Max Fried has the pick attached, but we've seen him be a Cy Young type of pitcher and somebody that you can build around and someone that, it makes a lot of sense coming from Atlanta as well. The big wild card for me here, and I'm gonna have to explain this one, is Walker Buehler on a 1-year deal would be very interesting because first off, if he pitches well, you could QO him and you could find a way to get a draft pick. If he pitches well, you could trade him in July and get some pieces back as well, whatever you feel is more valuable. Or if he pitches well, I mean, maybe you just extend him and then he becomes your pitcher of the future. So they're all interesting. I don't think there's a wrong answer. Like listeners are going to be like, well, I want this guy. Like I could agree with every single one of them. If I had to pick one, it's the value guy. It's Shane Bieber for me 100%, just because the upside is the best pitcher in baseball. It really is. Like we've seen him as arguably the best pitcher in baseball. Maybe not the best pitcher in baseball, but he's been arguably the best pitcher in baseball, which is an ace. Like, and that's what you're missing. That's what the Angels are missing is a true ace, not a number one. There's a difference between a number one and an ace. Shane Bieber has the upside to be an ace. I don't think any of these other guys on this list have a chance to be a true ace of a rotation. I think that they have a chance to be number one, number two
What?
type guys. No, I don't
You
think
mean to
it.
tell me Blake Snell's been an ace before? He's got Cy Young awards on his resume, and you can't see you think he's not been an ace?
I don't think he can be an ace pitching 5 or 6 innings a game. I don't think so. Like he needs to pitch deeper into games. And Shane Bieber's that guy that can bring you late deep into games and finish games off too if you want as well. I just don't see that coming from Blake Snell. I mean, last year the character issue is the biggest thing, right? Like wasn't there an issue last year with Blake Snell and not wanting to pitch late in the season? Like
He
did
didn't
that
make his
not
last
happen?
start because it didn't matter.
Yeah, he even came out and said it in his last start. Like it doesn't matter to him. That worries me. That's a huge red flag for me in a young rotation too. Like Matt, like that being in the clubhouse in a rotation, just not wanting to compete. I want my guys to compete, and I think the other three definitely compete. I mean, we saw Walker Buehler compete in the World Series. I know that he didn't have a great year. So there is that, but Walker Buehler wants to compete. You know that Max Fried wants to compete, and you know that Shane Bieber wants to compete. I can't say the same thing about Blake Snell. I just don't know if he really wants to compete. I don't know if he wants to go late into games either. Like that's the thing that worries me the most. Shane Bieber has the potential to be a true ace, not a number one, not a number two, an ace type of guy. Garrett Cole, like that type of pitcher, and that's what I would go with. That's what you got to. That's what you got to look for, especially in a young rotation. Is someone that's gonna be able to do that for you and carry a young rotation.
For Blake Snell, well, hold on. For Shane Bieber, and remember, I'm in Ohio. I see a lot of Shane Bieber here. His 2023 was considered to be a down year. And in that year, all of his under the hood numbers were awful. Gosh, awful. And he came out, I think the first start this year looking just as bad before he looked great his last couple starts. Okay.
His first two starts were elite.
But there are still some under the hood concerns for him. So there's no perfect there's just no perfect pitching possibility here. Each one of these guys has an issue. But you're talking about, Blake Snell, and he's you make a good point. Like, he only has 180 innings or more twice in his career. 2023, 2018. When he's out there, he's dominant. Though, I mean, there's no question on that. When he's out there, especially post May 31st, he's dominant. Even this year, struggled at first, was dominant once he settled in. It's just who he is. I don't know who I'm more comfortable with. Shane Bieber, coming off TJ, who has under the hood problems, or Blake Snell, who has a pretty good track record, although, again, only 180 innings twice. I'm out
Last
here,
year,
guys.
Snell made 20 starts and had 4 times that he went 7 innings or later. It's hard to be an ace when you're only going 6 innings a start. Like
he had some injuries in the middle of the year too. Don't forget. So I only made 20 starts.
Again, but Bieber was the best. Like he was on pace to win the Cy Young after his first 2 starts. He went 6 innings, 11 punchies on 83 pitches. 6 innings, 9 punchies on 83 pitches. He was stupid his first 2 outings, and all the metrics were really good for him. And then he had TJ, which I think his metrics went down because his arm was needing Tommy John and he was trying to figure out a way to pitch through it. And then he ended up like needing TJ, and the metrics will come back. I think all of his numbers were actually really good when he found his slot last year, and his slot he was probably changing his slot to make sure that he was in a less painful position to throw. And then he ends up was like, all right, I have to go back to being who I am, tears his UCL, and pitches really good. So Bieber would be the most fun because he has the odds of being a legit number one. Like 3 years ago, Shane Bieber was a top 5 pitcher in the American League. Correct?
Correct.
And,
Correct. I mean,
and that's a guy that you go
when
into
I'm defending
game one
Blake
of,
Snell, the person I want is Shane Bieber. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
But you two already picked Shane Bieber, so I'm like, well, I'm gonna go focus on somebody else. The idea that Blake Snell
That's fair.
can't be an ace, though, I mean, he has a Cy Young. He when he's out there and on, he's just as dominant as Shane Bieber is. The only thing that's really different in my view is innings. I mean, look at Shane Bieber's resume. He's got over 200 innings twice.
And he wants the baseball.
So
I think that's a big thing for Bieber is he wants the baseball. Like, I mean, I've heard Blake Snell say, "Take me out" when he's throwing a no hitter through 7. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah,
You're
why am
throwing
I
a
out?
no hitter in a Major League
Why am I
Baseball
out
game, and you're
here?
saying, "Take me out"? Yeah, like, get out of here.
I don't want that. I don't want that around a young pitching staff. Like that's. I mean, you want to talk about? I mean, we talked about Anthony Rendon being a cancer. Like that's a cancer. That's a clubhouse killer right there. Because all of a sudden, your dude that's getting paid $30 million says that. What does Caden Dana do? You know, what does Samuel Gary do? What do those guys do? What does Ben Joyce do? Does Joyce not want to come out for the ninth anymore? Like, I mean, we talked to him
Well,
enough.
we
I
we
think that
only have
he
70 wins. Why should I go out
exactly.
for the ninth inning? It's like
Yeah, that.
because you're getting
now,
paid to do it, buddy.
just really quick, the other two guys you have on the list there, Walker Buehler, it's just way too injury prone. I mean, Angels already have a track record for injuries. We don't need anybody else. Max Fried at 6 years, 160 for me. That's too much considering his injury history. I'm not willing to invest that, especially after all the trauma from Mike Trout and Anthony Rendon for injury. So that's why I'm focusing on this too. I would rather have a Shane Bieber on a lower year deal, and shoot my shot, but can possibly be out of it in a couple years versus locked in on someone for 6 years. Any other thoughts, guys? Any at all? All right, so there you have it. There's the pitching question. One last question for you guys. Go. Be honest. Do the Angels sign any one of them? Do they get any one of them?
Yes, I do think they signed one of them.
One of the four.
I do. I think
Um,
they. I think they're
we'll
gonna.
s-
I think they're gonna. I think they're gonna. I think they're gonna push out some money on pitching. I do.
Nate.
I will say wait and see. I don't know if it'll be one of these four. Yeah, I know that's going to be upsetting to people, but like they will get another pitcher. Will it be one of these four? I don't know. We talked about Sugano yesterday with the Angels being interested in him. Like, could it be someone like that? Sure. Could it be one of these four? Absolutely. But I don't know. We just haven't seen a great track record of the Angels like going out and spending this kind of money on a starting pitcher.
One last note before we shut down here, and this is, I think Angels are going to spend more. I think they are going to try and make some moves to at least be competitive. I have a hard time believing that Artie Moreno's going to go big on anybody long term at all until he really sees the fact that they're almost there. Like, and if he gets the feeling from Perry that they're still a year away, I wouldn't be surprised to see him wait this year. And that's not a bad decision, believe it or not. I know we're tired of those decisions, but in this case, it's not a bad decision. But do you have a plan? And that's the thing we've been going back and forth about. Is there actually a plan? And so we'll see. That's it, guys. Follow us on X at Talking Halos. Follow Nate at Nate Green 34. Follow Jared at Jared_Tims, and follow me at DC Paul. In the meantime, we're out of here. A great one.